All right, good morning. If you can see the title of my presentation, it's more about my personal reflections and observations as opposed to a scholarly analysis. I actually went to Beijing for fun, to play. I didn't do any work. So, I'm very happy to share some of my experience and observations about what the Olympics meant for China or for the Chinese. Before that, I have this clip from South Park. In the fall, they did the first program. It's on the China problem. How many of you have seen that? I'm going to show it. Just a couple of clips. Okay. Is this the whole view?
Thousands of Chinese performers play ancient Chinese drums. The precision of their movements made even more impressive by their massive numbers.
No! Chinese, no! Somebody has to stop them!
Sweetie, are you having nightmares about the Chinese again?
They're gonna take over the world! Team idiot! No! Leave us alone! No!
Sweet kids, are you all right?
The Chinese are gonna get me!
No, sweetie, the Chinese aren't going to get
They
you.
are so! There's 2 billion of them, their economy is getting better, but their advances in technology are gonna bring down America!
Okay. And one more. I want to show one more from the same episode. Just wait a second. So this is the beginning of the episode, and then this is what the kids conspired to do.
All right, Butters, we're here. Are you ready? I'm scared, but I know my country needs me. This is it, Butters. We have to be strong. We're taking down those goddamn Chinese right now. Let's pick it up here now, Butters. We're going to infiltrate and find out the Chinese invasion plan.
But yeah, why would the Chinese tell us their invasion plans?
Because we're going to make them think we're one of them. Teach it. And just say hello and free for them. Hello, free. Big dog, change talk.
Hello, True. Welcome to PF Chang's. I'll be right with you.
They are food before President. Oh my God. What? So it started. White people in here working for the Chinese. Can I help you? Oh, yes, I'm free. We are Chinese people.
Hello, Prudy. How do you
Yeah. Why don't I seat you over here? Your waitress will be right with you.
What the hell's going on here? You gotta sneak away from the back. There we are. Chinese people right over there. See them? Yeah. Oh, that's how the Chinese are here. Okay, I'm freaked out. You're calm, man. They're right over there, and they're gonna start screaming and banging on those drugs, and then Thank you, buddy. All right, we need to go over there and find out what we can of those commie rats. Oh, hello, Chris. Hello.
Hello, Prudy.
So nice to see all of our Chinese people here. As you can see, we are Chinese people ourselves.
Big bang, big bang.
Change our people.
他们在干什么呀？
哎，我真的不知道。
Yes, fire feature, change. So, what are the plans to take over America again? I forgot.
This is really my research area to talk about the Chinese images overseas. But today's topic is really to focus on what might be the domestic reading of the Olympics. But I want to start it with this, pretty much to say that as a sort of simplification, the Olympics presented a global image of China. But there are localizer realities and the localizer readings of the event. And so in this case, it's a localizer reading in the United States or in a small town, USA. But I wanted to share a little bit about what I believe is the localized readings among the ordinary Chinese about the games. And of course, I cannot really speak for the Chinese. My comments are primarily based on my personal experience watching the games both from afar in Chicago and LA, but also up close at the venues in Beijing, but also as an insider and outsider, as a Chinese native living and working in the United States. And also, I think very importantly, I represent a very urban view, believe it or not. I think most of my interactions and most of my upbringing actually took place in Beijing and in Shanghai. And as you all know, that China is a very diverse country with a very uneven development. And in fact, one of the national surveys before the Olympics, they asked the public in terms of their awareness and interest in the games. And so they asked people about whether they know the date of the game and the theme of the game, the mascots and all of that. And what they found was the highest awareness and interest were actually in the urban centers, and the least were actually more in the rural villages, and the small towns are somewhere in the middle. I also wanted to show this. I guess, my presentation is much longer than the 15 minutes allocated to me, so I'm just going to rush through some of these. But I want to show you this because I thought it was interesting, important, since we are talking about the Olympics here in LA again, and two of the most important milestones for China relating to the Olympics took place in LA. The first time they competed was in the 1932 games in LA, and then the first time they won the gold medal was in LA in 1984. The way I read the Olympics pretty much have based on the three premises. The first, to me, the Olympics is really a context. What I mean by this, it has to be placed and contextualized as part of the series of these events in 2008 in the short run, but also the longer historical context as it was talked about earlier in the first panel. And we always ask the question whether the Olympics is the age of social change. And I believe the Olympics was a pivotal moment in China, but that was actually just a part of the larger China story. And I have a slide to show you what I mean by this whole story of China 2008 with a focus on the Olympics. And secondly, the Olympics is a metaphor, as in a previous panel was already touched upon this, because it was a metaphor. It related to the powerful master narrative of this whole China's overcoming this century of humiliation. China is coming back again, and China is proving itself. And I borrowed the Obama campaign. Is basically China wants to say, yes, we also can. So that's the kind of the attitude, and I think what the Olympics so very well crystallized and symbolizes the actions and expressions that you will find among ordinary Chinese. And also, very importantly, Olympics is actually a performance. I'm borrowing this from the sociologist Urban Goffman's notion that the Olympics is really a very idealized, but to me, it's a very convincing performance on the part of China. Well, as a performance, it's a self-representation of China on the world stage, but you also have front stage performance and you have backstage performance. And Susan shared with us a little bit about some of the backstage performance, and my observations were primarily on the front stage. Equally important as you look at this whole event or this whole story. Now, the story of 2008, and on the earlier panel, Jeff, they have this book coming out, and so the way typically it's looked at is you have a series of these events, and here I highlighted these 8 events. Again, it's the eight 8 phenomena or what have you. So from the snowstorms, from the 314, and from the torch relay and all of that, and to the milk powder incident, and to the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the reform movement. So those are the events. And these are the discourses that you will typically find in China, how they interpret these events, or how these events were promoted or presented. And I tried to select some of these images that most, quote-unquote, most representative of these 8 events. And I'm sure you can do the same using the images that are coming out of the Western media to describe what is the discourse based on the events that took place. But more importantly, the way I think about this as a story, as an experience, and a reconstructed, there is some sort of a plot line. Of course, I put the plot line in a quotation mark. It's not really a real plot that, like, somebody's writing a play that it's you purposefully, make the arrangements of these events and then to make the storyline work. But here is how I see it. At the very beginning of the year, so you have a prelude to this whole Olympics, and with all the preparations and the countdown and all of that. And then, of course, then we started to see some of these complications. And then you encounter a major complication. And so there's a lot of suspense and there's a lot of uncertainty involved in terms of how China is going to act or react. And then we certainly reach the climax of the Olympics. And as a good story, you also probably need an anticlimax. And I see the other 3 events after the Olympics as the anticlimax. And interestingly enough, the spacewalk to me is it's like a flash forward to show China's future, what's lying ahead. And then we have this one very significant flashback, which is the 30th anniversary. For those of you who were in China during that time, there were a lot of documentaries about 30 years ago, what was then and what is now. And so there's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of comparison to showcase the evolution or the changes that China has taken place. And certainly the milk powder incident was caught in the middle. It both reflects something. It's a flashback because as it surfaced later on that the story, in fact, the information surfaced before the Olympics, and the local authorities and the company trying to suppress that because they don't want it to be, interfering with the whole celebration of the Olympics. And certainly this story is continuing. So there's also this flash forward that we still wait to see what's going to happen in 2009, maybe in 2010. So anyway, so this is how I reconstruct this story of the Olympics in the context of the 2008. And what did it actually mean to China? I'm not going to go through all of these since I don't have the time, but some of these are pretty standard stuff. I think everybody expects that. People have already talked about that. First of all, it is really a feel-good moment. As I said, it's a yes, we also can kind of a moment. And it is also a moment for boosting China's confidence. And here, in the discussion, I talked about it. There's a mix of superficial and also very profound confidence that's coming out of this experience. And also, maybe using an example, earlier in the presentation that Professor Xu showed us the Pew survey, which says China was so very confident that over 95%, this is pretty unanimous in a survey, to say that China will be a successful host, and China, they're confident about the future of China. And I think from the political point of view, that kind of a confidence is really a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want the government wanted people to have this anticipation and to have this excitement about the games. On the other hand, you ran huge risk of under-delivering. And in this particular case, China kind of pulled it off. And I have to use Premier Wen Jiabao's remark that he just made at the Davos World Economic Forum. And he was talking about how China can rebuild, has the confidence to rebuild the economy and all of that. And one of the advantages he said, it basically says China has its ability to mobilize resources for big undertakings. The Chinese is 集中大力办大事. This is very uniquely Chinese advantage in this case, and I think this showed very well in the whole Olympics presentation. And And also, there was a lot more civic engagement. We read about, or we heard about this army of volunteers. Is over like 100,000 people, and certainly they were mobilized by the government. But when you look at the professionalism and the friendliness, and you would have to say they are so genuine in their participation. And in fact, volunteering is not really a part of Chinese culture and society. So that's kind of significant, especially it's built upon in the aftermath of the earthquake, that there was tremendous amount of public participation. So even though the government hasn't really outlined the role of these non-government organizations, private individuals in these social processes, this is clearly a very significant sign, at least during the games, in terms of civic participation. And let me say a little bit about the two things that I think is significant in China. One is the awareness of the ethnic issues, and the other one is the raising of high expectations. I believe the tensions in Tibet and Xinjiang were really the subtext of this whole Olympics Games, even in China. And the government has always, for the Chinese public, the government has always touted the unity and harmony among all the 56 groups of different ethnicities. But the unrest and disturbances in Tibet and Xinjiang before the games brought into focus for the Chinese public the ethnic strife facing their country. And the tension, and more importantly, this time, the Chinese public were able to see some of these stories and to come to become aware of these stories through a more pluralistic lens, thanks in many ways to the internet, also the international media. So I don't think the Chinese public has, a full grasp of the severity or the scope of these issues, but certainly at this point is the first time that people are very much aware of these tensions and issues. And the Olympics also, raised public's expectations for their government in improving matters of concern to their everyday life. And the Chinese government was able to marshal all the resources and took great stride in improving air quality, reducing traffic congestion, and guarantee food quality and safety at the games. And some of these means employed may have really have inconvenienced and irked some of the residents in Beijing. But I believe, after all, the populace came to appreciate the cleaner environment and the enhanced quality of life. So the question everybody's asked is, well, what about after the games? And as exposed in the Chinese media, the problem of the Sanlu milk product surfaced well before the games. And unlike this previous product recalls in China, this particular problem really struck a psychological blow to the confidence of the Chinese consumers at large, and to some extent to the global confidence in Made in China label. And since globally there was already this huge issue with the Mattel recall last year, so it was not totally surprising. But in China, it really surfaced on a nationwide scale that it brought into focus this whole issue of the food quality, as with the growing middle class, higher demands of their quality of everyday life. And in conclusion, I believe that China faces these ongoing challenges, whether it's economic, justice, whether it's sustainable development or political reform. And in this particular year, as you all know, it's the year of the anniversary. So it's there are quite a few of these very politically significant and sensitive events that the country will be experiencing or commemorating, and so it will be likely to be defined by celebrations and also controversies with many variables and uncertainties. So here are a few questions that I wanted to raise as part of a larger Olympic story. Is how would China effectively manage its people's rising expectations of their role of the government in addressing a wide array of very deep-rooted and as well as some of these emerging socioeconomic issues, even as the centers of power within China have diversified? And how will the government handle pressures and tensions from within China, especially at the local level, with a growing number of protests and social disturbances? And how will the Chinese government strike a balance between this quest or the pursuit of shared Chinese values and asserting that China's national identity in their international engagement, and how can China sustain some of these very beautiful moments during the games in terms of civility and civic spirit towards their building a so-called harmonious society. In short, the Chinese national pride, confidence, civic spirit, and rising expectations, which the Olympics so very well captured and fostered during the games, will be put to test in this year of anniversaries, and so will the government's credibility and legitimacy. Thank you.